What is happening? J Gaming Dude here, and I'm going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and where it is supposedly going to end, kind of based off of the original Final Fantasy VII. So, I had a few questions about this Game Rant article because it's got me thinking. You know, in preparation for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I was actually going back and playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, platinum that, and then jumped on to Final Fantasy VII, like the original PS1 release, platinum that, and I'm just kind of like working my way through these games to just get a better idea of like what I'm going to get myself into with Rebirth. I don't expect it to be like a one-to-one recreation of the game, but I feel like there's going to be some very similar aspects, at least if nothing else, to it. So let me know what you guys think about like whether or not the game you feel like is actually going to be similar or different, or like whatever have you. But then I remember coming across this Game Rant article a while ago, and it was published in September 15th 2023, so last year, and it noted a few things that really made me scratch my head a little bit here. More specifically, so it says here, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth development team opens up about the upcoming sequel and reveals how much of the original game's plot it will cover. Now, if I scroll down a little bit here, so it's right, here we go. So this Nomada also right, I think that's maybe slightly higher up. Here we go. Yep. So, not too long after the game was shown in the latest state of play, so it's this paragraph right here, various Final Fantasy VII Rebirth crew members sat for an interview with the official PlayStation website. Creative director Tetsuya Nomura was asked at what point in the original story Rebirth will leave off at, and he answered that it will end in the Forgotten Capital, meaning that the story will cover everything up to the end of the original Final Fantasy VII's second disc. Now, the reason why this completely caught me off guard is because the Forgotten Capital you visit twice. Once at the end of the first disc, and then a second time not at the end of the second disc, but close to the end, because after you visit the Forgotten Capital for the second time, near the end, you still have an entire section in Midgar you need to do before Disc 2 actually ends, because Disc 3 is just you going to the Northern Crater and fighting the final boss. Of course, you can also do stuff like, fight the weapons and things like that, post-game bosses and things of that sort, or you could just grind up levels. You've got more options on what you want to do and how you want to do it, but ultimately, that's kind of like, I wouldn't say that it's up to the end of the original FF7's second disc, because it just does not go that far. Now, even better was, near the bottom, in the next one it says, Nomura also stressed that FF7 Rebirth won't be an exact match of the original, kind of what I mentioned earlier. I don't expect it to be a, one-to-one, but like, there's going to be some shared DNA, I'm sure, like locations and things like that. But it says here, some locations and narrative beats will occur in a different order. Interesting. We can't go to Wutai, which was certainly available as soon as we leave. What was it called? As soon as we leave. Midgar, which is kind of where FF7 remake finished. Yeah, here we go. So, sorry, wrong paragraph I was looking at, but this one down here where it says, this plot will take place to the Forgotten Capital, a place of serious significance in the story of Final Fantasy VII. One of the original game's most well-remembered moments took place there, and many fans suspected that this exact narrative would be just as gripping cliffhanger for FF7 Rebirth. Now, the extreme... So yes, the location does have a serious significance, but the most gripping part of the visit to the Forgotten Capital is actually the first visit that happens at the end of Disc 1, not the second visit. The second visit does add a lot more story, but the first visit is the one that has the big cliffhanger moment of the entire game. So if they're referring to the cliffhanger being a gripping cliffhanger, the end of disc 2 near the end of disc 2 doesn't make sense. The end of disc 1, however, does make a lot of sense. So, and if things do happen in a different order, that's also understandable. I'm just kind of shaking my head a little bit and raising my eyebrows, because it's probably been a couple of days that I've finished playing FF7, the original. And it really does have me thinking about, like, okay, why is this, worded the way that it is? Because I feel like they're definitely missing one question that should have been asked. That, I think, was it the PlayStation... who interviewed him? It was, somewhere around here. Anyway, official PlayStation website completely. So these are the guys that actually interviewed Nomura. They completely failed to ask one question though, which is like, okay, it ends at the Forgotten Capital. Without giving too much away, are we talking about disc 1 or disc 2? Had they asked that one question, I wouldn't be, shaking my head or raising eyebrows about the story. I feel like I'm getting a little bit too into the nitty gritty of, like, the actual story itself and kind of everything else in between. But I couldn't help but see this and critique it a little bit, because I am just sort of coming off of the original Final Fantasy VII and jumping into Crisis Core to remind myself of, like, Zack's story. And also the way that FF7 Remake effectively treats the story, or at least how we as a player are meant to interpret what the significance of that ending meant, which that ending does not happen in the original. Like, those events at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, specifically Chapter 18, does not happen in FF7. So it is certainly worth just mentioning that. And I'm trying my best not to go into details of either FF7 Remake or FF7, because they, like, these are major story points that are probably going to be somewhat reflective of each other. So I didn't want to get too into the weeds or in the details, but for people who know, I'm being specific by saying either, disc 1 with a very big story event happens, or the smaller story event that happens near the end of the second disc at the Forgotten Capital that is still big in its own way, but not as mind-blowing or shocking as, like, what happened at the end of disc 1. Again, if you've played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I wonder if I'm just reading this wrong. Again, please let me know sort of in the comments below if maybe I'm looking at this differently, because of the wording of the article and the way that it kind of presents itself. It just seems kind of weird. But yeah, certainly would have been good to have had some clarification of, like, oh, so we finished the Forgotten Capital. Is it like the event of disc 1 or the event of disc 2? It would just be good to have had that clarification. But I couldn't help but kind of raise my eyebrows a little bit and have a little bit of beef with this particular article and the way it kind of presents itself. But maybe that's just me. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 200 subs by the end of the year. And with all that said and done, I do upload every day. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.